We became like a feeder school for YC.
We went to Kazakhstan. They gave us the red carpet treatment. Like governors, ministers, like president's office.
Okay, now we have enough confidence and enough credibility that we can think about a permanent no. Let's go to the frontier markets. Let's go to countries no one's talking about, and let's like highlight their story, like put them on the map.
0 followers, Twitter account.
Took off like a rocket ship. A lot of people started making like 10K, 15K a month, like MRR, quit their jobs, quit school, were working on their ideas full time. The Minister of Digital Development signed an MOU with Solana and basically recognized Solana Economic Zone. Yep, we actually got an offer from Abu Dhabi government to give us $10 million to build P1.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here for I think episode 3 now of the Arc Live Firesides here with Farhaj from Forma. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Dude, I would love to start, get you, where did we meet? We meet in like Dubai like 2 years. Like it's a like Solana party.
Yeah. Yes, things. We were part of the party, or part of the restaurant.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. That was exactly it, mate. But you just give such good energy. Like I wish we got to spend more time together. I really enjoyed that first day, and so it's awesome better have you here. Oh god, yeah. And then I found out the other day that you were involved in Buildspace as well. So I don't know if we get to talk about this now, but where did it all start for you? Yeah, Farhaj, where are you from?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Do you know?
I haven't done my 23andMe. She's pretty sure I'm 100% Indian, but yeah, I'm Indian. I'm from Kerala. My parents immigrated to Dubai. I was born and raised there. I went to high school there, to an all-boys Indian school. And then I went to college in America, which was a shocker because, there's diversity of gender at college. I was like, wow, I'll have to talk to other people now. But it was a really cool experience. I think I assimilated pretty quickly to American culture. I found some of the values there quite interesting. I thought it was really cool how ambitious and open people about their ambition. Usually in India, people are quite reserved. And I think that's kind of when I started to catch the entrepreneurial bug. So the last 10-ish years, I've been going through the startup circus. And so I started my first company, which was like a barter booking app, which failed terribly. My second networking company.
Dude, I was like a brown guy. I had to get a fade every 2 weeks, and you guys are just chopping me up, bro.
Where were you at this point? Were you still in this
I to Texas.
Okay.
It's okay. So I was going to school right next to Cowboy Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, so I started that company. That didn't go well. My second company actually started off as a legal labor marketplace for marijuana farms.
Okay.
And so we were the largest labor marketplace for legal weed farms. They're pretty complicated as an immigrant. And then by virtue of building that, and funny enough, I don't really consume any of that drugs. But funny enough, 2 years later, by dealing with a lot of the Department of Labor lawsuits, right? Because we're doing compliance, proving that they were contractors. We built out a compliance framework that prevented gig work companies from getting sued by Department of Labor.
Wow. What year was this?
2016 or something.
I mean, I was employing a bunch of gig workers in 2016. Take out the same stuff. I just sat and Simone, they're my old co-founder. We were dealing with the same stuff.
The tax.
Maybe we used your software. Who knows? But they keep going.
So, and then one day when I was in Miami for On Deck, they were doing the first ever IRL program there.
Nice.
I met with the founder of Flexport, we were damming. And he was just like, yeah, 1099 is really complicated. And I was like, oh, we have this thing that we built for these weed farm workers. And he was like, oh my God. And then he called up his general counsel, the HR team, and they were blown away. And then I had an enterprise SaaS company. And basically I exited it to Checker a few months later. And I was like, whoa. I went from super broke, running out of money, just let go of my entire team with 4D, not knowing what to do in my life, to exiting.
Did you call it too early? Should have you kept going?
I think it was timely. Long story short, after exiting my company, my visa basically was possible for it to get renewed past Checker's compliance. So I had to leave under 90 days, made no money from an exit. So I've really been to the startup trials of fire. And so after 5-6 years in the trenches, I was lost figuring out what to do with my life. My parents basically disowned me because I was supposed to be a roboticist. And that's when I came across Buildspace.
Have they re-hired you? Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
I'm 75% owned now.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I think my grandma's still deciding. Yeah, it's really cool, Buildspace came across my timeline. I had gotten into Solana by mistake, basically. Because when I was in Miami, there were a bunch of my like really smart friends who were in the cohort, like ex-Uber, ex-Goldman Sachs, just really cracked people. Yeah. We're building on this weird blockchain thingy. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, and I thought blockchain was a scam. I'm not sure. Yeah, totally.
I mean, you were right, but no.
I was like, yeah, sure. The one night, when we all went out, we came back, we're like, okay, bought like a few Sol or whatever. And then I got into the NFT mania. Basically, during the days I was running my startup, on the nights and weekends, I was like flipping NFTs to pay for my bills. So I kind of got into the ecosystem, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And I remember for me, it really clicked like what crypto could do. Is I was sending monthly remittances to my sister because she was going to school in Bangalore, and I used this app called Remitly. It's charging me like 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
And I was dollar poor and NFT rich at one point. Sure. And so I sold an NFT. I used DC. I sent it to a friend, and she off-ramped it and got money in India faster than Remitly, no fees. And I was like, holy shit. It could amount like, I could sleep for like 2 nights. Yeah. And that changed everything. It's after my exit and my, as a normal entrepreneur does, 5 days of sadness before he decides he needs to get back into something with high level intensity.
Sure.
I kind of came across Buildspace on my timeline. I thought what they were doing was super interesting. The team was only 3 people at that point. They had just pivoted from being like a very large homeschooling platform for kids during COVID to doing this developer education stuff. And actually, they just saw a bunch of people were talking about Solidity. And then they made a developer tutorial for Solidity, and then it just went super viral organically. I think it was like 35,000 people did it, and people were building apps and stuff. And then I did it. Like, I don't know how to code, and I built like a working Web3 app, and I was like, wow, this is really crazy. They're teaching people how to build stuff in a really fun way. So literally like before I caught a plane out of the US to Dubai, I sent a huge cold message to Farza. He was like, was this crazy ass dude. And I was like, I think you could like maybe generate revenue, because these blockchains, probably the most important metric to them is developers. Yeah. So what if we talk to them about giving you some funding so you can make better courses? Yeah. And he's like, if you pay $100,000, I'll hire you. And then he closed like $850K that week. That's like, now you're forced to hire me, bro. Jeez. Yeah. And then since then I just like started working on Buildspace. So that was really cool. Yeah.
That's Buildspace. For some reason, it just like wasn't actually on my radar.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, right? Or I just kind of like missed it. But like, there's lots of people here.
Yeah. It's
like Blisk and the rest of it that like were a part of that and like really did value being a part of Buildspace. And were upset. I'd say it feels like they're genuinely upset when it was stopped.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, that sounds like you were a pretty important part of that then, from, in your first week generating basically their first revenue and that being to the tune of basically $1 million. That feels like a fairly significant contribution. So what? So you did get the job. He was like, okay, you can come and work.
It's like because he wanted to build a team in SF all full time. He was actually going to make the rest of the team move from New York and Vermont to SF. And then he's like, fuck, like Farhaj can get a visa. And I kind of want to work with him. So I guess we have a remote team now. Okay, could he use Deal to hire me for the first time? Like, yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
Amazing. And then what were you doing at Buildspace? And like, let's talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, basically like, I guess it was like technically part of the founding team. And I just like helped wherever I could. Yeah. Through the different kind of modalities of Buildspace. At one point we're got involved just so much. Like every month we would just at the chart of users, see their like weekly and daily user activity, and say first ask yourselves, are we winning or are we losing? Yep. Is the chart going up? If not, why? Yep. And is this the most interesting product we could be working on at our time? Yep. And so started up with the developer education, and then once we really went crazy with that. I think at like peak we had 150,000 people who did developer tutorials. Basically like Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, Avalanche, any major chain you could think of at that point in time, even Terra. It's the first time where $200,000 is created in thin air. It's just our revenue from that contract. But it's really cool, because it was like a positive sum contribution. The SVB crash also happened. So, but we were making these really cool developer tutorials. A lot of people were building. Our Discord was blowing up every single day. And so like everyone had to wear multiple hats. Sometimes we're making content, sometimes we're doing BD calls, sometimes we're customer support agents for developer tutorials, even though we know nothing about it on Discord. And kind of involving the company. But I really think when we got Escape Velocity, it was when we had one summer, it was like 1 year of testing the developer tutorials, and we just raised from like Andreessen Horowitz, put in $10 million. They're like, this might lead it to an interesting version of the future of education. But basically, the whole team just stopped working, and we interviewed 500 users in 1 week. So everybody interviewed 50 to 100 people. And what we learned is that a lot of people were super stoked that they'd know something for the first time, but then they felt like they were at a loss because they were like, now I don't know what to do. Like, how can I take this skill and like actually make money? How do I leave my job and do this full time? And so we were like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then we tried this experiment where we're trying to staff like Web3 companies with these workers, but we found that they were going into the same patterns that was wrong. You know, they would look for people with credentials and hire them versus the dude who had a lot more, you know, like potential for liftoff.
Sure.
And so we were like, damn, how do we like solve this issue for them? And then we were like, wait, how do we grow explosively? We build in public. You know, we're like the build in public company.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, why don't we build a program where we literally don't say anything about startups? Like we maybe like think that YC does an amazing job at being a unicorn factory.
Yep.
What do we just train people how to get to what we call minimum viable income? Is making enough money from their skills to pay their bills so that they can live a pretty good, meaningful life. And that was what excited us. We're like, oh, maybe they'll help people get closer to Ikigai.
Yep.
And a lot of us were Ats founders, so we're like, damn, we would have been happier. Maybe, you know, if we did that. And so that's kind of how we came up with the idea of nights and weekends. The first version, actually, we worked with Maddie Tay from Solana because we had a really great relationship with Solana at that point. We'd like driven like 30,000 developers to start building. A lot of them to start companies. And so they gave us like $100,000 to run this like 6-week program where we basically taught people to go from an idea to like clarifying that idea to building what we call the toy version of the idea. Is it MVP is too complicated?
Sure.
To just making a video about it, posting on the internet. And then what happened was just really crazy. A lot of these things, when they got on Twitter, started going viral. A lot of people started making like 10K, 15K a month, like MRR, quit their jobs, quit school, were working on their ideas full time. And in the first cohort, you know, we only had 500 applicants, 150 people who actually completed the 6 weeks. And we were doing like weekly live streams, and then we had designed this program. And by the end of it, only 30 people came to our IRL event in SF. By S5, we had 75,000 people apply, 15,000 people launch products, and over 1,000 people fly with their own money to San Francisco.
Yep.
To just spend 3 days with other people.
Yep.
Who just liked building.
Yep.
And it was just insane. It was like,
I mean, this is what it was. This is what something. 15,000 people launched products, right? And 1,000 people just got on a fucking plane that came to hack, right?
just was
Something you created, right, on this online experience.
and it was wild. And I just think it was like, most of those people, even when I talked to them today, said like the biggest thing that Buildspace gave them was usually at home. I mean, they don't have the ideal support structure. You know, the neighborhood they're in, if you're from the village in India, no one cares about your excitement about B2B SaaS.
Yep.
You know, or the music app you want to make. Like Buildspace was this internet native refuge for them, you know, where everyone they talked to was like, it was like a expansion of San Francisco culture on the internet.
Yes.
Where they were default helpful, they were super supportive, and they created a social echo chamber that was helping a lot of companies go viral on the internet.
Yes.
And I think that was something that was really, really unique. And we even did an IRL version of this program, again, where we intentionally didn't focus on startups. We said, hey, are you someone who did Buildspace?
Yep.
Who finished nights and weekends and are willing to pause your life for 3 months, cover your own flight, cover your own accommodation? We built a physical campus for you where you just come work on your ideas. And it was just startups. We had musicians, filmmakers, creators, and a bunch of people building cool AI, Web3, robotics stuff. And they just came and tinkered for 3 months. Literally, when Farza interviewed them, not a single one of them wanted to start a company. At the end of the program, 75% of them got funded by YC. We became like a feeder school for YC. They just became like super pract people.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were just spending time like sharpening their skills on like how to tell the story about their product, how to iterate very quickly. They're not emotionally like attached to this thing, right?
I mean, it's so interesting. You know, Buildspace was not, again, it wasn't a cookie cutter technology startup. It was DJs launching their first album. Yeah, people have been, is there all of this complete diversity of people? I just heard Timur as well talking about how part of what they're doing there is like expanding the type of people that are engaged and benefiting from these experiences. But like, these people were going through the like identical sort of experience, like online, and we're all getting value from it and hanging out with all these different people. It was it working?
Yeah. I mean, this is before AI was like, here it is now. And it's crazy. 2 years ago, AI was nowhere near as good as it is now. ChatGPT could be nowhere near as helpful as it is now.
Yeah.
And so the most helpful person to somebody on their journey towards entrepreneurship is someone else in their same shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're someone who's starting a company for the first time, this is the analogy you always used.
Yep.
And you sat and listened to Elon speak, it's completely meaningless to you.
Yep.
Because the day-to-day problems he deals with as an entrepreneur, they're like leagues ahead of you. You know what's most interesting is if you meet someone who's just 5 steps ahead. That's it. And you see them and you relate to them. You're like, damn, that's not crazy. I can kind of get there. It like motivates you a lot. And then there's a bunch of other people around you who are nice and who are supportive. And I think we had like very strong cultural values that we never spoke about, but were displayed through our content, which was consumed by our audience. And we always thought about that. We're like a very high impact owned media company.
Yep.
You know, from the live streams to the curriculum to the content to the program, we're basically like an engine that's distributing this culture into our audience.
Yeah.
And then what they create is just like by virtue of those values.
There you go.
Right?
That was so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to get into Forma. So maybe just have one last point in this. Like, so why did it stop when it was loved and maybe successful? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, the SF school was doing good. The internet program was going well. Basically, like every 6 months, Farhaj and I had a pretty awesome call where we just like debated everything. And we'd like sometimes take crazy turns for the company. And one of the ideas we had, and it's kind of how Babak and I met, was I was like, man, you know what? Like this stuff is crazy. I was like, look, I'm born and raised in Dubai. I'm back here now. The entrepreneurship scene here is non-existent. I was at that point on Twitter, just literally like Mayor Francis Suarezing, like for like Dubai, what about just more cool people? Just so I have friends. And I was like, if we build something to a place like this in a place that has the resources, you know, we could drive a lot of foreign direct investment and economic development and startups created, jobs created, you know, just like we were doing it for blockchains, which are internet countries first. But maybe we could do this for real countries. And I was like, that's insane, but why would a country pay us money to have a school? And I was like, I think it's possible. And so I just started cold messaging a bunch of people on LinkedIn, ministers and stuff, going to all these hopeless meetings. And then I cold messaged Babak. And then he just like, what's your phone number? And I was like, here you go. And just called me and we talked for like 2 hours. And then we both started working on the government BD. And it was crazy. We spoke to like 25 countries or something like that in a matter of 6 months.
Yep.
And that's, I think, really when the kind of seed of Forma was getting planted. Like I was talking to the Malaysian government, the Japanese government, and I saw deep fear in their eyes show up because they basically culturally institutionalized reducing the amount of risk that their people took. And now their economies were plateauing. And they wanted to bring in entrepreneurship, but you can't force entrepreneurship. You know, what they thought was interesting about those spaces is this cultural layer that just inspired people to take risk. And long story short, at the end of that 6-month sprint, we actually got an offer from Abu Dhabi government to give us $10 million to build V1 of like a physical district campus for entrepreneurs. And we got like, holy shit. Like a country just offered us money to build V1 of this product, which is a school that is tuition free for entrepreneurs. They're willing to subsidize the cost of their everything. And then we talked to Farhaj about it, and made some weekends growing explosively. And we kind of collectively decided, okay, focusing on the internet school made sense at that point. And I was like, and I had read the Network State book about then. I'd watched the first conference. And I was like, damn, like, I think there's something here. But so I was like, I'm sorry, bro, I got the itch again. I got to go start something. And then I left that December. And then we stayed in touch every month. But I think like to kind of wrap up the story of Buildspace, Farhaj is a very integral part of Buildspace. You know, we worked very hard because his values represented, you know, the values of the people in our community. He was kind, but he was very abrasive. He had this, like, we call it Pakistani uncle bias, where he held you accountable, but he also motivated you. And he's kind of like, you know, really, really awesome. And I think other members of the team could have replicated that too. We had some like strong candidates that could have become a face, but he just like was not having the most amount of fun working on this idea. And you know, when you're building a community company, if you don't have the threshold to be able to have fun working on that, it's very difficult to scale that, right? I mean, he would have been responsible for inspiring and motivating millions of people in just probably 1 to 2 iterations of nights and weekends to go on this journey. And if he himself wasn't having fun, it wouldn't have been a true reflection, you know, of the ethos that he believes in. And so it was really hard for him, but he decided, hey, you know what? Things are going well, and maybe this is a bad decision, but I'm not having a lot of fun working on this. And that's not helping me deal with the amount of pain to build this company. And so I think maybe the best thing to do is to shut it down. And hopefully this becomes something extremely nostalgic for the people who experienced it. And hopefully this becomes a playbook that other people can commit and fork, right? And then that happened. Like I'm starting Forma now, Stavin. the creative director of Buildspace, now partner and founder Singh. I don't know if you follow them. They're absolutely crushing it. Jeffrey's doing a bunch of cool stuff. Everyone's doing cool stuff. And there are people from within Buildspace who went through the program who are now building their own permutations and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really hard and sad, but I think it was for the best,
Again, there's loads of similarities. There's like the Zuzalu into sort of like the zoo ecosystem, and it's like the build space into the this does just all these things, and it's seeded, right? It's always the way the mafias of these companies that do things. Yeah. But okay, so then you already parted ways, right? And you were like, fuck, there's something here, right? So and again, it sounds like you were lucky to meet Babak and Hobby early on in that journey. Like, why did you DM Bobby in the first place?
So basically, he built Plug and Play's entire Middle East office. Sure. They were huge. They had 7 offices. They had worked with like Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, Abu Dhabi Investment Office, ADIO, to set up like literally that funded programs by the government to attract startups. Yep. So I was like, there's nobody else in the country. And I literally looked at the whole country who had more experience than him. Nice. At working with governments, at getting funding to build entrepreneurship related stuff. Yep. And so I just reached out to him, but then, we realized we just had a lot more in common. He cared a lot about impact. He was a teacher in a previous life. He had been through the startup grind himself. And so like he cared just a lot about education. I think that's what he found interesting. Maybe you'll double click into that in one of your future chats. And so, for me, basically I built 2 startups. I had co-founder Crit Falls. I've been through the whole journey. We were 6 months together, literally on the road, 9-12 hours a day. Yep. Every possible iteration of frustration that could happen with a human being came up. Yep. And I thought that we dealt with it really well. Good. And I think that's what you need in a co-founder, right? And so when I wanted to build this company, I wanted to figure out, okay, who has the type of skill sets that I think is complementary to me. Yep. And who can have really difficult conversations with me without ever raising their voice. Yep. They need to, like just actually intellectually battle it out. Yep. And not be afraid to say I'm wrong. Yeah. And he was that person, so I was like, bet. And then I basically asked him. He had some crazy ideas. At first, we were actually like messing around with like payment stuff. I really wanted to do the SEZ stuff. I'd already pitched him the idea actually before I even quit. I was like, man, if instead of Buildspace asking countries for money, if we were just like working with Solana or something, we could actually give the countries money and we could invest in the country, and that they would have more founders and more economic activity that comes back on chain. Yep. And so it's like a virtuous cycle. And I actually even told Parsa, I was like, man, maybe Buildspace should launch a token. We can build an economy around these builders, or we should build a product that they use, right? Maybe we were talking about vibe coding before vibe coding existed. Maybe we should build like an idea builder. But anyway, that kind of took 2 months to kind of go through the idea maze. And then when I was confident enough, I was like, okay, fuck it. I called Akshay, BD legend from Solana Foundation. He's like, man, I have this really crazy idea. I wanted to tell you about it. And he's like, I thought you never called. Apparently, he's been trying to recruit me for 2 years. I told him no multiple times. And then he had already been thinking about this thesis, which was like Solana Economic Zones. And we were like, okay, great. And so we had our first chat. We had our second chat where Akshay and I got on a call together like 2 weeks later. And then roughly 2 months later, we started SEZ Argentina. And so it was crazy. From the launch video to the first top up was 38 days.
This is beginning of last year.
Yeah, right before. Yeah. So it was we were going at a crazy pace. We were just let's go big, go experiment. And the main thing that we wanted, my biggest regret when we were at Buildspace is when we were having these government conversations, there were 2 types of countries. There were countries that had a surplus of cash and a deficit of talent. And there were countries that had a surplus of talent and a deficit of cash. And this would be like Argentina, Kenya, Nigeria. They couldn't give the grants or the funding to make all this amazing things happen, but they had just raw talent, amazing market, really good people who could succeed. And the other people wanted to attract talent that could give cash. And I was like, I wish we could work with these countries. So when we created Forma, the thesis that we had was let's go to the frontier markets. Let's go to countries no one's talking about. And let's highlight their story, put them on the map. Yep. And the most interesting thing for us to do is to find the next banger financial centers no one knows about yet. Yep. And then if we do that as fast as possible, we'll learn enough to hopefully, and I've always thought about this, but to build our own town, and figure out what level of fiscal, legal, whatever autonomy we need to make sure it's an amazing environment for people who want to create, to thrive. So that was the shit. So aligned to Solana. They were very supportive of us, and they said, hey, we'll just give you the funding you need, and you guys just go and experiment. We trust you. And yeah, that was 2-ish years ago. Yeah.
And again, so Argentina was the first, the first one. That was like what, just after Malay, the kind of been coming with you writing on some of that. Yeah. And what happened there? I mean, it was around.
It's around the same time as Crecimiento, actually. It's so we even know that we're doing their stuff. I was like, Argentina's lit. We should go there. Everyone's talking about it. No one's doing it.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, what was that? What happened there? And what was the first, like, kind of like formal, physical reality of Forma?
In Solana ecosystem, like pop-up village is not a known meme. And so we had a thing called Mountain DAO. It's been running for a very long time, where like hundreds of builders get together in Utah and they just hack. That's all they do for an entire month. It's like just, it's like what was that conference where like people are on land terminals just coding back in the day? It literally looks like that. It's crazy. And so they hadn't had this more wider audience related kind of longer experiment. And so, like Akshay was like, dude, I think what Solana's doing is really cool. Edge City, what they're doing is really cool. Like maybe we could do a version of this that's have Solana's cultural values, but also focus very hard on trying to see if we can set up a line or a relationship with the government and give them perspective on policy change that could benefit them really well. And so that's kind of what we did. We reached out to the state government, found someone pretty cool there. We made this documentary or video about it and why we would think that's an interesting market to bet on. And this was a Twitter account with 0 followers. No one even knew what Forma was. I hadn't even announced I was working on it. And we were like, okay, let's go and find a 2-story place that we could turn into a campus for a month and make it be like a third place for founders, developers, little more people. Anyone wants to come and just explore. And that was the kind of like premise where we're like, we'll bring in, and something we really like to do is also every country we go to, we do like a cultural sprint where we like research like cultural patterns, trends, foods, art. And we actually we go on design sprints, building the brand of the pop-up, like every single element of it around local stuff. And we actually highlight local art and like integrating to the pop-up. So I think Babak, because I couldn't get a visa yet. So Babak, our filmmaker, and Phil from our team just literally flew to Argentina, did scouting, found a venue. We just hired our team in like 10 days. I just called up a bunch of friends and I was like, hey, send me people you really trust for. I think this is going to be my life's project. And they said some great people and we just started working on it. And so it's crazy. I think the wildest thing we didn't expect is how well the first video would do. And I think we told
we don't make good videos.
Yeah, I'm about to 0 followers Twitter account, right? Like, not a single thing had been posted. I just had a PFP and a cover photo. In that first video, I don't know what happened when it hit the internet. It just took off like a rocket ship. I think we got like 500,000 views in like 48 hours. All of crypto Twitter, all tech Twitter's talking about Argentina.
Yep.
And it was like wild, right? Like I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I think that's the first time where I was okay, this is very interesting. Telling the story of the country in a perspective that other people might not see.
Yep.
So that was it. So we did that. 38 days later, we were in Argentina. We hosted a 1-month pop-up, which was tough about the energy bar. So I salute all the community leaders having run a few pop-ups now because it's really tough. But it was also an amazing experience,
Yep.
For me, I think my favorite question to ask always after pop-up is like, I try to do an exit interview with almost everybody because they come say bye before they leave. I ask, would you say you need like 3 to 4 friends that you stay in touch with for the next year here? And then like oftentimes they'll say yes. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like mostly about try to win. Yeah.
Nice Petro.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. No, I'm just sort of, I remember the first thing I asked Balaji here was like, God, you okay? When I ran these pop-ups, I was always looking forward to the day it ended.
Yeah.
But when you're building permanently, it just never ends. It's like, Jesus Christ, right? It's it's tricky. This.
Well, what's cool now is like we have like people within our own pop-ups that come more than once who become like de facto community leaders.
Yeah, sure.
And like that's what I'm excited about. I know like the more time that we spend, the more people who come more often.
Yeah.
Like they just like volunteer themselves to be community leaders. And I just evolve into like a village elder,
No, yeah, right. These people are potentially pillars of future society. So they're like,
they call them the first of all the cycles. Very important for a community,
Okay, great. So Argentina was a blast. Put you on the map. Everyone was like, great. Bunch of people made friends. Gave you some nice yeses and exit interviews.
Yep.
What happened next?
Yeah, and so it was great. But one of the things, I guess, like a little bit of a personal story. Even though I lived in America for 8 years, I have an Indian passport, and so mobility has been a very big issue for me all of my life. the exit thing. I sold a company, I was able to get $1 because of my passport, right? And it's been like something that I've thought is just really difficult that so many people, regardless of how competitive they are as a human being, just because of some non-existent, challenges or constraints, their local socioeconomic situation or the passport they hold have an unfair, path.
Yep.
And so one of the things we really wanted to do is actually innovate on the immigration spectrum. And then second, immigrate on the regulatory front to increase ease of doing business. The other strong opinion I hold, and I think Biology has the same one, is I think we're going to see the unbundling of Delaware happen, within the next 5 years. Delaware basically not only brain drain, but did a capital drain of the most talented people in the world and made them have America as their primary fiscal base. I actually think now countries, if they do the right kind of regulation, can bring billions of dollars back into the economy by just being the place where the company sets up first. And so those are two of the things that we really targeted. And crypto, usually when we lobby for crypto stuff, downstream of that, there's incorporation and immigration. And so, so that we really wanted to make an impact there, but we felt like we didn't get that far with the Argentinian government. So it was a little tough. And so next we were like, okay, what do we want to do? We were like, maybe let's try to improve on the experience piece until we can find a place where we can really innovate on the government. Sure. And that's kind of when Sri Lanka came to our radar. We almost went to Philippines, actually. And we were talking to the Freeport area of Bataan, which is a new free zone that was getting built there. And then one of our friends said, hey, have you looked into Sri Lanka? And I was like, no, not really. And then I looked into it and I was just blown away. They had a huge tourism economy. It had just survived the verge of bankruptcy. Very hospitable people. It was only a 4-hour flight from Dubai. And then they were building a special economic zone in a joint venture with China Harbor Engineering Corporation. And it was already 40% built out. And so we was down, okay, flights. So we went there, we did discovery, we found this beautiful town called Alhambra. It was on a 6-kilometer strip. And I was like, this is the perfect location for a pop-up. Because basically it literally felt like you were in a village. In the morning, you just go for surf classes together. In the evenings, there's a beautiful, eco bar called Tracks that was hosting all sorts of live music and stuff like that. And you had so many third places that just pulled you in.
Yep.
And in 2-3 days of being there, you'll have made friends with already 5 to 10 locals inviting you to stuff. And so we're like, maybe this is an ideal version if we want to go long-term on a permanent hub of what that place's culture looks like. And so we speed ran that pop-up. And that was really great. This time we didn't focus that much on government BD. We made another amazing video promoting the country as a location for business. We just worked with the free zone. I've talked a little bit with the central bank and stuff, but that was it. And focus more on this experience. I think that inspired us. And then we were like, okay, now we know what the experience needs to be like in our hopefully future village. What do we want the government and the regulatory to be like? Let's find somewhere. And Babak, actually, when he was speaking in Saudi, ran into the governor of Astana International Financial Center, which is a special economic zone in Kazakhstan, and they really hit it off. And then he happened to be in town for Abu Dhabi Finance Week. And then me, Akshay, and Babak met him again in person. And then we're just blown away by how sophisticated, this representative of the Kazakh government was. And we're like, maybe we should go check it out. And then, that happened. We went to Kazakhstan. He was the red carpet treatment, governors, ministers, president's office, central bank. And for the first time, they were all listening to what we had to say. And I actually think our content helped a lot. Yeah, because they saw the proof of work of what we did for these other countries.
You made a great concept with them as well.
Very good. Yeah, you would just market them, but nothing in expectation, nothing in return. And then, the Kazakh government was just like, we're in, let's do something. And they actually, prior to when we were there, which was in May, peer-to-peer trading of crypto was still illegal in Kazakhstan, right? They hadn't developed an official stance. This is just a few months ago. They were trying to figure out what to do. And when we got there, I think our conversations went so well, we're like, we're going to become a crypto nation now. Because basically the meme I was telling them is you guys have, your predictability is very high. You're politically very neutral, like Switzerland. Your capital markets are growing. You have 99 out of 110 natural resource and periodic elements. You're exporting uranium more than any other country on the planet. And you're just kind of hospitable people. I was like, this is the Switzerland of Central Asia. And I gave them the example of Zoop, where I'm like, look at what Zoop did. They got $500 billion for the companies to go incorporate there just because they were friendly. And we were blown away by their special economic zone. It was super competent. And I was like, how does no one know that there's an alternative to BDI that exists, in this jurisdiction? And then they were like, okay, we're going to be crypto nation. And we're like, but sure, you say it, you heard us before. And then they did it. And so that was really crazy. I think that was the first time we organized a trade mission where we got like founders of like mature startups, like Series A plus on Solana, executives from the Solana Foundation, 3 of them come down.
Yep.
And just hang out with the entire regulatory government ecosystem in Kazakhstan. And they gave us the warmest welcome. And they came through on everything they said they would do. And so, yeah, like after the conference, like the Minister of Digital Development signed an MOU with Solana and basically recognized Solana Economic Zone.
Yep.
As like a digital program, right? And then the goal was basically to work on a bunch of things together collaboratively in hopes that a physical one could be established in the future. And then, yeah, he just randomly shipped Crypto City announcements. We're like, whoa.
What's amazing about this, right, is again, this is like first Solana Economic Zone.
Yeah.
Like Forma has, you've seeded that, right? You created that for the whole of the sort of Solana, right?
Yeah, it was memed into existence, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of know. So because you were saying last night, like Solana's been very kind to you, but you've also been extremely valuable for Solana.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we've delivered like unbelievable amount of economic access, you know, from founders to capital markets, to like TradFi partnerships. Like, and now, like, we're even doing government to government introductions. Yeah, facilitating trade. I mean, I never thought we would do any of that stuff.
Yep.
I think it's just like, you know, like right time, right place. Yeah. I think there's the good thing about like not doing it in a non-commercial way where you get to represent a nonprofit, which is why I think like there's a huge opportunity for these blockchain foundations to make a lot of impact, is you have no commercial interests, you know, and actually like increased economic activity in that country benefits you too.
Yep.
So there's a very interesting relationship that you get to have with the government. Yeah, other companies might not be able to.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are obviously extremely capable, right? And but it is interesting actually just like how open for business all of these governments are.
Yeah.
But as people don't realize, like every government has like between maybe 1 and 100,000 people whose like job is to get you to move there.
Yeah,
right. Or they have entire departments to try and get the talent and the capital that this room has to go there, right? Now, again, most people aren't capable of dealing with the way that you kind of have, right? But it's like, you can make stuff happen quickly here if you have the capability, and you're proving that, right? But I guess you've sorted some stuff out for Solana in Kazakhstan, but you're not doubling down in Kazakhstan at the minute. Forma is what's happening next?
Yeah, that's no question. So basically in Kazakhstan, the champion that we found locally to introduce us to a lot of the governments, made all this stuff happen, he now got so inspired that he nominated himself to be the country head for Solana there. So he's running the whole thing. He's also the CEO of a local exchange called Intibix. He's like investing his own capital into like developing out like the capital markets, everything. Super cool. And we were like, wow, this is like a playbook we hadn't explored before. We built super deals, you know, with founder-like people, founder-adjacent people like Akshay Sads or other communities, but we never had founders actually run, you know, like institutional partnerships and build out like an entire ecosystem in a country, but because it actually benefits their business too. And so in Georgia, we're having the same type of conversations, which is really awesome. And I'm really hopeful that the people that we've identified are going to be the country heads, and they'll drive that place towards a feasible Solana Economic Zone. And at the same time, we're also going to replicate the Sri Lanka experience. So this is like the final piece where we win on the regulatory and we win on the experience. And that is basically why like Balaka, okay, now we have enough confidence and have enough credibility that we could think about a permanent node. Because there is the ability for a government to be welcoming and kind and excited about partnership to help us have that pool, you know, set up. So yeah.
That's incredible. And again, like you're ready to, Georgia is the next thing that you're doing. When's that happening?
November 15th to 23rd.
Then we got, oh my God, there's all these places I want to go. They're selling it hard to me, guys. Like, oh, but you're already jealous. But again, this is really interesting. You are already ahead of being there. You are basically setting up some people to continue being that into the next sort of Solana Economic Zone.
Yeah, we go do these scouting trips. So we've already had like entire 10-day meetings with all sorts of government entities, the largest banks there, you know, like all sorts of like institutional players. Yeah.
And is Forma gonna own a piece of that pie in these Solana things as it you've been setting up? It's just you do. Okay, but you're building a fucking ton of credibility via how you do this stuff. And you're now, again, you think that you're looking for part of that.
Yeah.
And can you give us any more detail on that of like what you're looking for, where you're looking for, like what you're going to try and do there? Just, whatever you can.
Yeah, I mean, so since day zero, the thesis has been there's some small, nimble jurisdiction that's going to be able to innovate on the regulatory, to be able to be welcoming to projects like us, right? And the biggest opportunity for them is what I like to call like the internet middle class. It's people who've learned how to trade their skills or passions on the internet and earn dollars on the internet and earn like 6 figures on the internet. And they're looking for these places where they could find community, have a certain type of lifestyle. And my hunch is, as the kind of world moves towards working natively on the internet, and I'm sure Balaji and Akshay disagree with me here, I think that a lot more people want to be closer to Pacific Standard Time, right? Because that's like the most valuable time zone in the world. You know, all of the highest amount of density of VCs exists there. So smartest talent in AI exists there right now. Things could change. America is weird, but consistently, PST has been a very valuable time zone. So it's like the combination is probably ideal for myself. And I always think about like, what would 17-year-old and 30-year-old Farhaj like be very excited about in terms of like livings is I want to be in a time zone close to PST. I really do like Western like ish culture where you can be fiscally conservative, but liberal in terms of your expression. And I think third, mobility is very important. Like where can you have a pathway to a passport that gives you, access to the euro, for example, right? Instead of paying $250 million of your hard-earned money, which is what people spend to buy a house in America, I have to spend on a passport just to be able to travel to conferences that invite me to speak at, right? That's crazy. And then fourth is incorporation. I genuinely think there needs to be a competitor to Delaware, right? And there needs to be an alternative for international founders. And so if we can get all of those criteria in one place, and then on the other side, have, a climate, like logistically in a good place, like where people feel excited to live in hopefully a walkable neighborhood, that's a home run. Because what I really want to do is basically inverse universities. Yeah, right? If you really think about it, universities, there's glorified private equity funds that basically make a fuck ton of money but from the real estate they own, but also milk you for tuition for hundreds of thousands of dollars and throws you into debt. They don't need that. Their endowments are 60, 50. Their state universities have double-digit billion-dollar endowments. They actually don't necessarily need the money from tuition. They increase administrative bloat. 1570 fund, Michael Gibson wrote an amazing book called Paper Belt on Fire, which literally lit my brain on fire. And so he made me start thinking about this thesis. And I actually think like really successful like network cities are basically inverse universities where people are learning by virtue of self or by virtue of community. People are coming there to create and earn dollars by virtue of creation. And so what they just need to do is pay rent into the real estate. And then from the revenue that project developer generates, your developer generates, they just need to reinvest the profits into maintaining amazing third spaces. Gyms, wellness spaces, co-working spaces, funding programs, accelerators that increase the rate of like change of people creating things there. And that is like what needs to exist. And we need like 100 of these to exist all over the world. And there are not a lot of people who are kind of innovating at this front. And what's really cool is basically because of blockchain, now there's an internet native capital formation there that directly benefits from creation on the internet, right? So they're incentivized to give some sort of fiscal partnership. Now you're not reliant on the government for funding. And, real estate is a pretty understandable asset class. You can raise money to build that out, and the real bottlenecks are, again, incorporation, immigration, culture, and real estate. And so instead of going to school, getting $250K into debt, you should come to a place where you rent a banger apartment. You go to pubs, you get live music, you go like these places where people are inspired and create like a massive build space. And when you get really excited enough, the only time you come to pay something outside of your rent is when you incorporate your company. That to me is like the perfect town, right? Where you come into this place to literally just get inspired as an artist, as a business person, or whatever. And when you get super excited, you bet on yourself and you create that business bank account and you go live on the internet. And so hopefully that's our goal, is to make a version of that with Forma. And I hope that could serve as a playbook that other people can fork and create similar societies around the world. And when we get that regulatory edge with the government, we can show that as a case for Europe, and other countries to, like Noah was talking about, maybe make their own versions of Hong Kong that can be these innovative areas that can create legislative policy, that can create cultural policy that they can fork over the country. And so, West Africa, we're talking to some people there in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and some parts of Western Europe we're looking. But basically, December, we'll evaluate all of our options. We'll make a decision, and our whole team was going to move there in January. And we'll start building it.
Yeah, I love the timeline, man. Everybody's just getting on it. Is the time to build, isn't it, right? To be sort of like cliche. But I think you've already painted a picture of what sort of that success kind of like looks like, right, in the immediate future. But I guess where does this journey end for you?
Damn. That's a good question.
And maybe the leading question in the wrong direction.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I think like it would be really awesome to scale like the first version of this to like, you know, the size of the biggest college campus in America, which is like 60 to 100,000 people. Have you ever watched Movie Accepted?
I don't think so.
It's a really good movie. 2009, Jonah Hill's in it. Basically, this guy, you know, back then it's all about getting into college. He doesn't get into college, and he creates like a scam university, like a fake website.
Turns out I'm good.
Yeah. Turns out the enrollment button by mistake, and he gets like thousands of people who come and give him $20,000 each. And he's like, well, I guess I got to build a university now, you know? It's a university where people teach themselves stuff they're interested in.
Yeah, but it's
Super funny. But yeah, that's what I want to do.
okay.
Yeah, I think if a version like that exists in the world, and I do what I do, which is make content about it. Yeah, I go to all these different places, yap about it.
Yep.
You know, I'm loud and boisterous. I'm tell people like this is something that they should do. Hopefully, under the list could exist.
Yep.
And for me, it's just like a person's most valuable resource is time, and then there are so many forces acting against that. You know, be protected. They're trying to rob you of your time, and I just think a universe where AI is going to eliminate so many of these jobs. We need 20, 30, 50 million internet small businesses, you know, where people literally are just creating stuff and earning dollars on the internet. And all of the institutions that can exist, you know, like Edge, like Founders Inc., like YC, like how many of it, like these we can motivate to exist are very important, you know, to make sure that we don't struggle with the loneliness epidemic. We don't struggle with mental health issues. We don't have more people feeling worthless. We make people feel more comfortable with their fiscal kind of autonomy to make families, you know. And so for me, the end state is hopefully if we can contribute to at least 1 million people minimum who are able to work on what they're passionate about by creating some sort of touch point with them, either through content or through real estate, like I'll be happy. So hopefully that's the goal. And then more. Maybe I'm having it ends, but I feel like a DJ. You'll play, you know, like, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
But thank you so much. So basically, everyone should come and see you in Georgia. But they should wait out for the announcement of where to move in January. Otherwise, they should follow you guys on Twitter to hear all of your incredible sort of like country propaganda that you create. Right? It's good fun. You create great content. So it's good. So no, the pleasure, ladies, so much for being here. Thank you so much.
And so that was Vitalik's whole thing of try it and see what happens. And you have a few hundred people live together for a month or two. Not common at all. We're much more interested in like painting a more optimistic vision of the world that attracts people. Be the community, right? And so we had almost like 95% carryover from the first event to the second event. I genuinely think pop-up cities are a critical layer. It was overcompensated by the benefit of having a bunch of people try a bunch of different stuff so that we could all learn from each other. It gives me life energy.